Hello again, and welcome back to Wood Hill Park for this very short update, really, just in conjunction with the signal box that I've just finished constructing. And I was just going to talk about the infrastructure, really, and show you some of the infrastructure I've been putting in place. As around the signal box, it would be rather complicated. I'm trying to emulate some of that and make it look somewhat cluttered, really. Anyway, as I said, just a short one. Just in case you wasn't aware of what I have been modelling, this is all based on Broxbourne station, which is on the London-Liverpool Street Cambridge line, which also feeds Hertford East on a branch line. And this station has been here since 1959, after the old one was knocked down and replaced. And this has been my project for probably the last couple of years. As you've just seen, I've been adding infrastructure in front of the signal box, as this area would be quite complicated with dummy point motors in my case, but reflecting the real ones, and cabling all over the place, and cable trunking which is already in place over there, and the tubing that goes underneath the rails to protect the cables, which was used in the 1980s, and you still see it around today, even though I think it's not the done thing these days, but you still see it in place. And in the 80s, that's what they used. So just a bit of orange tubing. I've used wire in my case, some stiff wire, and there's two different colours, and I thought, well, that reflects one being there for longer, which is faded in the sun, and a new one that they've replaced. And I'm just going to add some ballast down here, very fine ballast, just to show the workings of them, maintaining it a different colour to the actual track surrounding it, which reflects more up-to-date maintenance. As I said, I'm going for a very fine woodland Celix ballast, and hopefully this will slip down next to the piping, but not covering it too much, but just to reflect the maintenance that's been done. I'm probably going to be in the way of the camera like normal, but I'm only just pouring it very lightly out of this container, so I don't want too much at any one point. Now I'm just going to brush it to one side so you can see the piping. And what I'll do is with my mini vacuum cleaner, I'll vacuum up that, then I'll put some 50/50 PVA to hold the ballast down where the piping is. It's one of those things you probably should have done in advance, but you never know what infrastructure you're going to need in what area. And at the time, I didn't know how far the hobby was going to draw me in and how much detail I was going to get into. But I'm enjoying adding extra detail just to give it that much more of a realistic look. And you'll see in the background that I've played around with the signal box, added some patches to the roof, as over time there would have been repairs and stuff, and just generally weathered it. Bit of rust coming down on the sun shield at the front, which you can see on the actual real signal box. Actually, this may be a better angle for you to see what I'm doing. I'm now going to get my little mini vacuum cleaner out, which is very handy, and just suck up some of the waste, sort of fine ballast from one side of it. That's a bit of an overspill. Right, that looks rather neat, and what I'm looking for really. So it's recently been buried or maintained, and I shall just run some 50/50 PVA in that. Bit of IPA, just so the 50/50 PVA runs into it nicely. The cabling I use is Wireman's old lacing cord, obviously because I'm a wireman, and I've got a roll of lacing cord, and it looks just like cabling. It's shiny as it's sort of lacquered, and what it is it's just a cord inside a string inside it. It's not wire, so it can be temperamental trying to place it where you want it, but it has that nature to look like cable loose on the network, which you often see everywhere. It stays put with a bit of super glue, but it is a bit fiddly to apply, but I quite like it, and as I said, I've got a whole reel of it, so it lends itself to doing this sort of thing. I've got quite a lot more to do, and I'm not an official on how they wire up the network. I haven't got a clue, so it's all a token thing really. I'm sure people will say to me, oh, that doesn't go there and this don't go there, but it is just a representation. Remember, it is a model, so don't get too carried away with authenticity. It is just a representation, as I said. With some of the pico points, you can, if you're careful, get it right where you want to put the piping through, because on the webbing, on a lot of the, I think it's mainly the older points though, there is a section that hasn't got any webbing at all, and it's very easy to push some pipe underneath, but you do have to know where that lies, and I think I struck lucky with this one as I was gauging it, but this one here I did have a bit more of a struggle to get it under. I don't know if you can see that. It's even I've lost it now. There's no webbing at that point, so you could put a pipe across there, but you have to know where that section is once you've ballasted it, so you want sort of a point that you've got in your bits and pieces, and you might be able to work out where it is. But as I said, I think the newer ones don't have that. They've got webbing all the way through, so can make it more difficult. But whoever said modelling was easy? there's loads of detail you can add. I've added the TPW system, that's it, Train Protection Warning System, which are these little mesh things go between the tracks, and they're an automatic braking system should a train driver go for a red or drive too fast approaching one. So they're in between the rails, the cabling, as I've said, the trunking, and also you've got you probably didn't see me show you that, but yeah, all the cabling, the dummy point motors, you've got discarded rails, all sorts of things, stuff that hasn't been tidied up properly. It's the nature of the railway's infrastructure that nothing is perfect, and quite often looks a bit messy. I also hear you say, where's the AWS ramps? Well, the AWS ramps are in the station, and I already fitted these a year or two ago, possibly longer. And there's drainage in the station in the middle of the cess, and there's litter everywhere, as a lot of people have pointed out. My station is full of litter, but that depicts sort of a station of the era, really. The line used to branch off behind the signal box, and still does, but a lot of it is overgrown, and behind the signal box was a bit of a goods yard, a holding point for coal trains and other goods wagons that would sit to the left of the station waiting for their chance to get on the main line. But I didn't depict this on my layout. I went for 2 lines raised on the section above there, you can see. If you look for it nowadays, it's very hard to see it anyway, as it's well overgrown. Just for this short update, I thought I'd get my Flirt out by Hornby and give it a run round the layout and depict nowadays, actually, as a lot of the station and signal box remains the same to this day. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back again in the 1980s before you know it, and I'm working on something special. It could be a Christmas update, or it could be something else. I'm not entirely sure yet, but thanks again for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.